So as a woman of color, right, being in the spiritual realm, a lot of it isn't really like accepted by the Black culture because it's just like it's too woo woo. It's like not of God. It's not, you know, the Christian religious way or whatever. You know, I'm curious to know if you've received that feedback from the culture. Because, but before I even ask you that question, because I was involved in a conversation. Well, not really involved in it, but I was like I heard the conversation, and it was Black women, and they were talking about Beyonce and Coachella.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was like, oh, did Beyonce have surgery? Did she, you know, do this or do that to her body? And I was watching and that was the whole Beyonce at Coachella, the docu series.
Uh-huh.
And have you seen it?
Yeah. I watched that last year on my birthday. The one it was on Netflix, right?
Yeah, that one.
I think that's the last time I watched it. It was like literally almost a year ago. So,
Right. But it was so interesting to see how she works and just her Virgo-ness and how she pays attention to detail and how she came up with these concepts and her doing like 13-hour like rehearsals.
oh yeah.
Right. I was just like fascinated by that. But the conversation on the other side of that was, did she have surgery? Did she work like what she just had babies? Did they, you know, all of these things. And a conversation continued with like someone wanted to go to Colombia to get work done, and COVID was messing that up, and whatever. And I was just like, part of me was kind of, I don't want to say disturbed by it, but it was just like as Black women, we can go a little deeper. You know what I mean? But like for the most part, it's always not always, but there is a certain like level that we kind of operate on as a culture as a culture.
Yeah.
It's just not accepting of like the spiritual world and all this woo-woo-ness and all of that. And for me, I saw do you know Alex L?
Is
I think she's like a writer and like she does meditations and like
maybe if I saw, I'm not sure.
so it's Alex L and another one is Layla Delia. Do you know who she is?
Not off the top of my head.
They're along the same lines, but
Okay.
I follow them on Instagram and I do meditations on Insight Timer and they have meditations on Insight Timer. So there was a live the other day that they did together, and there are two Black women who are very spiritual, and they were having a conversation about like self love at this time and what it looks like for them. But it was like in the essence of like their um of the senses. So it's like, what does self love smell like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? And it was just the most interesting conversation. And I was like, I wish Black women would have conversations like this.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not the case. So, so I'd like to ask you, like, your experience as like, you know, a spiritual Black woman that is into the spiritual arts and the culture. Do you find that you get some negative feedback around spirituality and what you do? Mm-hmm. And if so, how do you handle that? And then how do you feel that we as a Black culture can embrace more of that? Because it's a part of us too. It just looks different.
Right? First of all, we started it. I love this question. So, I mean, not to be like that, but we literally did. Yeah. So, and it's interesting that you're asking me that because I've got a, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow has her brand Goop in her blog Goop, mm-hmm. and I'll get the alerts on my work email address. And she had an email that said, you know, how to cope during COVID from spiritual advisors or something. Yeah. And so I clicked on it, and there was literally not one person of color that referenced in the article. Yeah. And I'm so used to that. But then for some reason today, I was like, okay, this is why I do what I do. You know what I mean? Because what about the people that look like me and you? Like, where do they go in these times? Yeah. And I literally could not identify with any of I didn't even like want to read the bios because just even looking at them and I don't want to sound bad, but like there was nothing relatable either from age, style, race, like demeanor, like nothing resonated with me. And I was like, this is why it's so important for women of every nationality probably to do this work, so someone can identify with you.
Yeah.
And so the way I was raised was very different than probably most African American people. Like my dad's a Pan-Africanist. Like we practice African spirituality in my household growing up. What I mean by that, I mean like pouring libation and talking to our ancestors. And just like Dad would always say, there's a creator, but your ancestors are walking with you. Very like, what's that movie that my husband loves? Black Panther. It was, we really were like on that stuff. You know what I mean? My dad wanted us to appreciate every religion. Like he wanted us to, if we wanted to have a religion when we grew up, we picked it on our own, not just putting you through slavery and it's gone through your blood. Yeah. So now you're a Christian, you know? So he didn't want that for us. And so for me, I think that obviously speaks to me getting into astrology and getting into mystical studies. Like it was very natural for me because this is what our ancestors were doing. We were praying to deities. We believed in God. And when I talk about the answers, I'm talking about ancient Egypt. I'm talking about Nubia. I'm going back to the ancients, what we were doing. Even in Ghana, my husband's in the Akan culture, and he's a practitioner of Akan African spirituality. And we pour libation here, and he prays for our family. So this is what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were better off when we were doing this.
Right. Yeah.
This is when we were literally building pyramids and so smart. And we have multi-geniuses like Imhotep. And like, you know, there's just so much history there. So I don't want to downplay Christianity at all because I was born on Easter. So you know, I definitely respect all religions, and I think there's a need for it. I think there's a purpose for it. I think it gives people hope and faith. And I think at the very core, all religions are based on hope and faith. I don't really care about the people that have to criticize what I'm doing because I know there's so many more people that will benefit from what I'm doing. And I'm not to say that it doesn't hurt my feelings if someone left me a negative comment. I think I got one on YouTube actually like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I saw that one that you shared.
Work or something, and I would just like laugh it off. I'm like, honey, like I'm doing the most positive work. I try to walk a righteous path. That's just who I am. Yeah. And like that is, I feel like if you're doing that, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just going along with universal law. Yeah. So I think for me, as long as people keep that in mind, that, you know, just live by universal law, respecting other people, being a good person, telling the truth, being honest, you know, doing what you say you're going to do, then you're right, you're already on the right path. And so as far as the Black community is concerned, I think we're at a point where I'm seeing a tipping point.
Yeah.
A lot of the clients that come to me are Black women who are looking for more. And are, you know, they go to church and they believe in God, and I believe in God too. But they're kind of searching for something else outside of the church. And we are getting to a point where we're going to see people moving back to African spirituality in some form. And it doesn't even have to be African spirituality, but I feel like we're going to be moving, going to become more mainstream eventually, because it's in our blood. I mean, it's just who we are. Being connected to the earth and being connected to the universe, and knowing that there's things outside of ourselves, and life is bigger than just us going to work every day. I think we're starting to see that. And I do feel like, and it's happening fast, because even 10 years ago, I feel like I was always the friend, and I have friends, Black friends that are spiritual and they're into the same things too. But I think 10 years ago, some of my friends that weren't are to it now. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a matter of the education and us doing conversations like this. Kind of spread the knowledge. And it's not the devil's work, because I feel like the biggest thing is that people think you're psychic or you're an astrologer, you're doing the devil's work. When, by the way, there's so many references to astrology in the Bible, and if anything, they were so connected with the stars, and you had to be a priest. Most priests were astrologers back in the day anyway, you know, and it really happened, not to make this a history lesson, but there was a point where it didn't serve the church to have astrology. And so it kind of was like bashed. And ever since then, people have had this negative connotation, but it was pretty much a part of religion back in the day.
Yeah.
So, I think we're seeing a turn for the world to kind of, not even Black people, but more people are moving towards like spirituality that doesn't look like that's not necessarily in the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quran.
The structured religion. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's all kind of changing before our eyes.
For me, it kind of validated what I was doing, because I was like, I want to see more conversations like this that we're having. That's deeper, like, and more centered in our hearts and our connections and meanings and things like that. So
I totally hear you. And then part of it is because there's not a lot of role models that we have
too. Yeah.
And Beyonce being
right.
That, you know what I mean? People automatically look at her and she's amazing. Duh. Like we all love, who doesn't love Beyonce? But like, you know what I mean? I just think that's why representation is so important across all different industries, different races. And I was thinking about this today also, like who people resonate with might be different than someone else. Like someone's Beyonce, that might be Oprah for someone, or that might be, I don't know, Nia Long, or you know what I mean? That's why this whole representation of Black women in media is super important, because not everyone's going to resonate with Beyonce, from a like physical standpoint or even talent wise.